Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, clouds of all ages, it's been a while. Welcome to the Sanctum Forecast number 18. My name is Eno. I am the Chief Vibes Officer over at Sanctum, but I'm not important. The real stars of the show, the people who have been building the product behind the scenes and are now here with you to give you all the details that you've been seeing on the timeline, are, of course, our illustrious leader, FP, Chief Cloud. I am loving his new PFP, by the way. And of course, one of the core developers over at Sanctum. You're going to be hearing all about Sanctum. He's going to be giving you a breakdown of some of the greatest services that are being built on Solana today, especially on a technical level. But first, let's talk about why are we here, right? Well, number one, it's all about the Sanctosphere. And at the Sanctosphere, we like to talk about the most bullish news, the reasons why you should be bullish on Sanctum. And we also like to talk about the most delightful products that are being built here. Obviously, Wonderland Season 1 was a great success, and we're carrying around that exact same attitude and the same ethos to building products to everything that we do, whether it be for consumer or enterprise. And of course, we're sharing all this information with the most earnest Cloud fam. Honestly, the people that have been joining the stream month after month after month and supporting us on the Discord and Telegram on Twitter, whether it be research firms, or whether it be liquid funds, or whether it be tiny retail investors or people who have contributed art. Like, honestly, we really appreciate you guys. So we're here to give you the bullish news that you deserve. And of course, we're here to celebrate together as one big family. I mean, there have been different variations of this phrase that we've been using throughout the last few months. Sometimes when the market's down, we're saying that we're here to support each other. But given where we are today with the market, as well as the progress that Sanctum has made just this year, right? I think it's time for a celebration. And let's kick things off with a bang. Number one. We've reached all-time highs. These numbers are from this morning, but currently we are at 13.64 million SOL TVL, and at current SOL prices, that translates to over $2 billion in TVL. This is absolutely crazy. I'm going to prematurely bring on FP just to gauge his reaction. I can already see him smiling in the background right here. Hi, FP. How are you? This is insane, man. Look at this. We have... in your wildest dreams, when I joined, it was around like 8-9 million SOL TVL, and obviously the price of SOL was a little bit lower. And now the price of SOL is back up, and then we've almost like doubled our TVL. In fact, even yesterday, our TVL was closer to 14.6 million. It does kind of fluctuate a little bit, but what are your initial reactions? This must feel incredible.
A long way to go still. I would say. All of this couldn't have been done without our partners. So the way in which, of course, as you guys all know, the way that sort of like Sanctum has been able to grow is that we kind of basically uplift others to uplift ourselves, right? So we work with amazing partners like Jupiter, like with Drift, right, with Bybit, and let everyone kind of grow, like they'll use their own community, grow their own pie, and grow their own LSDs, right? And that's why, and all of this is under the big Sanctum umbrella that's being kind of like supported by this unified liquidity layer that we built, right? And so that model, and this, instead of like, oh, everything has to be under us, and rather like, oh, let's have like 100 flowers, let them all sort of bloom, right? I think that has allowed us to kind of like reach this all-time high. So we really couldn't have done it without our partners. Yeah.
Yeah, I think over at Sanctum, what makes us very unique, and at some points I've almost kind of like criticized this internally, but I think the reason why we're in the position that we're in is because, like, even though we are very grateful for our partners, and even though like we're very ecstatic that we are at all-time highs and we continue to reach new highs, month after quarter, or let's be safe here, quarter after quarter after quarter, we're very humble about it, and we don't actually get too excited, right? I think the mantra over at Sanctum, especially internally, is to under-promise and to over-deliver on those, what we want from Sanctum. So just want to say congratulations on all the success. But there's this phrase that you use internally as well that I really love, which is small potatoes, right? Like, this does not even represent even 1% of your ambition, correct?
Yeah, we still have a long way to go. Although I take your point. This is kind of like being very nice, in a nice way in public, telling me to like celebrate a little bit more. I can hear the subtext in that. So okay, let me just say yes, we're very proud. We're very happy. When I started this like long time ago, I would not have expected it to be here. 2 years ago, I think we had something like 50,000 sold TVL total, and then this is like, like it's in the millions, right? So from 50,000 to 13 million, I think that is pretty crazy. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. Again, yeah. You're right. We should. This is something to celebrate, and we couldn't have done it without all of our partners and all of our stakers. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, it might sound like a little bit of subtext, but truly, I believe that is one of the secret sauces to Sanctum's success is like really not getting overexcited about numbers like these and constantly wanting more. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's why we're at where we're at. We will be bringing you back on stage in just a little bit, but just wanted to celebrate this small little win before we continue with the forecast. So W's in the chat for FP. Let's show FP some love. He's been writing a lot more recently, which I have loved seeing. And you're going to be seeing some more essays from FP as well as some explanations. So let's send FP off and we'll keep the show on the road. Thank you, FP. W's in the chat for FP, everybody. So, in addition to all-time highs, we got to make sure that everyone understands the house rules. Number one, we want you to hype the chat, right? We don't want spam. We just want really high energy. And of course, right now things are looking very positive, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that things are looking so up and positive right now because we still need to think long-term. Short term, markets up, markets down, it doesn't matter. You focus on the mission, right? And if you do the right things and you align yourself correctly, then that means that you prepare yourselves for the opportunities that come your way. And of course, we really want people to be thoughtful and kind. Like, obviously, that doesn't mean that you can't criticize or ask critical questions, but it just means that, we are all supportive of each other and that we want to work together to build outcomes, not only for Sanctum, but for Solana that's desirable. And of course, we want you to have a good time, because if you're not having a good time with your work and being a part of this community, then like, why are you even here, right? Like, we're here to have a good time and to build this future of Solana and Sanctum together. And this, okay, you might notice that I'm wearing this nifty difty basketball jersey over here. It's cloudy with a 100% chance of drip. If you want to enter yourself for a chance to win one of these jerseys, we actually had 3 winners that we'll be announcing that won from last week's forecast. So please, retweet this forecast. And of course, and this is really important, we want you to ask meaningful questions. And I think that this is just another part of the Sanctum ethos, right? Like, we want very high signal and very little noise. I know that a lot of other projects are very content with just a bunch of spam on the timeline. And I know that even in the past, I've been guilty, I think, of being a little overly excited, as well as just yelling quite a bit, lots of noise and not a lot of signal. But we want to change that a little bit, right? Like, we want to make sure that we're asking the questions that actually matter. So please drop some questions that you have, and we will be covering all those at the end of this forecast. Wow, we have over 1,700 viewers on this stream and climbing. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And of course, we'll be picking 3 winners, and we'll be letting people know who are winning these nifty Sanctum jerseys. Absolutely love these. So these are the winners of the Sanctum jerseys from last forecast. There's Chocho, Lucio, and Some Digits. All of them are OG members of the Cloud Fam. Thank you so much for being so active in the chat for the last forecast, as well as retweeting the forecast. That means a lot to us. It helps with outreach. So again, if you want to enter yourself in for a chance to win a Sanctum jersey, retweet the forecast, ask meaningful questions, things that, and you know what? There's no such thing as a dumb question. This is also something that I've been working on a lot personally. Sometimes I don't like to ask dumb questions in public because I'm afraid of what people will think of me. And what FP and the team have been reminding me over and over again is silently, there's probably a whole bunch of people on the team that are curious about what you're curious about, but they're too busy to ask it, right? So if you have a question that, even if you think it's stupid, like, just ask it, because I'm pretty sure that there are other people in the audience who want to know as well. So for today's agenda, we have a really interesting agenda. It's a lot different than anything that we've done in the past. Number one, it's the segment called Cloud Meets Metal. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You will learn very soon what that means. Afterwards, if you've been paying attention to our socials, you'll know that we have released a brand spanking new product called Sanctum Gateway, and we're going to be diving into why that matters and the strategic direction for Sanctum long term. And of course, we have big warm welcome with a new guest who's never been on the forecast before. In fact, I tried to get him on a few forecasts ago, but things were a little bit of hush-hush and it wasn't the right timing. But today, finally he is making his public streaming debut as a part of the Sanctum family. And last but not least, of course, we're going to be covering Lightning Round, which is your chance to ask us anything. Obviously, if you're asking questions right now, we won't be answering them just yet. But towards the end of the stream, we'll be pulling them up, and then we'll just be going through them, right? So please feel free to ask tough, critical questions, or if you're just curious about Gateway and the products and services that we're building and the strategic direction of Sanctum, please drop those questions in the comments. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start off with Cloud Meets Metal, and yeah, you know me, we love video here. So we're going to start with a wonderful video. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have acquired Ironforge. Wow, this is the secret that we have been keeping for a very long time. In fact, I have a little surprise clip that FP does not know that I prepared, but I'd like to take a walk down memory lane.
We made an acquisition, right, which had unannounced acquisition.
Whoa,
right?
dude, yo, chill. What the heck? What did? Okay, guys, you didn't hear that. Relax. Moving on. So this was a couple of forecasts ago, like a couple of months ago. We had been trying very, very hard to keep this under wraps, and then like you didn't leak it at all. It was just, and in fact, there's a fun. Do you remember when Vibu actually leaked it first?
Yeah.
So that's another story that I'd love to tell is when Vibu was in one of the Jupiter streams, he just leaked that we had acquired Ironforge in the comments, and then we're like, dude, what the heck? So he actually had leaked that news first, but I mean,
he actually sent me a text after. It was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I was like, "It's chill, don't worry." Probably nobody saw it.
Yeah. And truly, I don't think very many people saw it. But like, just want to talk about this a little bit more, right? And I think the first question that a lot of people might have, and this is like a very reasonable question, is what is Ironforge? Just very briefly, like, obviously, if you're in the validator space, you definitely know who Ironforge is. And if you don't, then there's no excuse, right? But like, so for those of you who are, not familiar and don't keep track of some of the biggest players in the validator space, FP, could you give them like just a very brief refresher of like what or who is Ironforge?
Yeah, so I don't blame people for kind of like not knowing what Ironforge is, because it's so most kind of the products that we use, like DeFi products, these are like kind of like B2C, right? So we use Jupiter every day, right? We use Camino, right? Drift, right? Things like that. These are products that people kind of touch, right? And Ironforge is actually not a product that people use on the day-to-day, but it's what protocols like Camino, Jupiter, and Drift then go on to use on the back end, right? So it's a business to business, it's a B2B infrastructure product, right? But it really kind of like is very underappreciated because it sits in the background, right? So so that's kind of like, first of all, I don't blame anyone who doesn't know what Ironforge is, right? It just isn't like something that users will touch on day to day. But of course, you touch it indirectly, right, from the application side. So let me explain kind of like what Ironforge is. Well, first of all, we have to understand what kind of happens, like how do we read and write to the Solana blockchain, right? Like, and it's you can't, how do you get the data from the blockchain to see what is in your wallet and things like that, right? We have these things called RPC nodes, right? And RPC stands for remote procedure call, but that's not important. The point is that there are these nodes that you query, you ask, you send like a request to them, and then they'll give you kind of like the data back. And the thing is that these RPC nodes, like they work kind of like 99.9% of the time, but sometimes they don't work, right? They break down and they go off, they're under maintenance, or they just whatever, right? For whatever reason, they don't work anymore. And that's actually potentially kind of like very devastating for your application, right? If you cannot read from the chain, if you cannot read from the blockchain, that's very bad, right? Like your application doesn't work, you cannot display anything in your wallet, right, etc., etc. So what people do is that they'll kind of like do backup RPC. They'll let you select. I don't know if anyone used to be in the days where you are picking like the RPC, right? It's like, oh, I picked the Triton one or the Solana one, and it's like I click. It's like, this one doesn't work. Let's try this one. And you as the user have to do that, right? It's like people don't even know what the fucking RPC is. Like it's like ridiculous, right? Why are we getting the user to kind of like toggle that setting, right? It doesn't make sense. And so of course nowadays, like Solana has come very, very far. Like I think And so nowadays, like people don't even think about it. But actually, all this is powered by Ironforge. So what Ironforge does is that it basically is like a RPC kind of like proxy, right? So it does all of the toggling for you. It does what we call like fan outs. So for example, if you have 3 RPCs, right, and you want to kind of like, this is the primary RPC, I want to read all of the time, but I also want to back it up to this if that fails, and if that fails, or I want to send them to all 3 at the same time and pay like a little bit of an extra cost because I'm sending to 3, but I'm making sure that there's always getting through to at least one of them, right? Then Ironforge does this all behind the scenes, right, for the protocols like Ironforge, Camino, Drift, right, Jupiter, Camino, right, things like that. They are using it, right, as a proxy, right? They are using it to basically send everything to all of the different RPC nodes so that they can get reliable data, right, all the time, right? Instead of having to manually toggle these things and have a very poor user experience. So they can give you the data all of the time and have a more reliable application. Yeah.
Right. And just repeating that once more for emphasis for people who have just joined the stream, Ironforge is a provider that has helped, many products and services automate this RPC routing so that users no longer have to manually select their RPCs nodes. It just doesn't make sense. Like why the hell would a user be the one that's responsible to decide what route that they go? I mean, they obviously have no experience or inclination or desire to know any of that. They just want it to work, right? And Ironforge is one of those key infrastructure solutions that just makes a transaction simpler and work for services like you said, Jupiter, Camino, and et cetera, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And but here's the thing though. I mean, out of all the companies to acquire, I mean, I got to ask, like, what stood out about Ironforge? Cool. Like they're providing infrastructure that's core to Solana that creates a better user experience, but it's one thing to appreciate them from afar. And it's another thing to say, like, I want to buy, like, I want you guys to be a part of my team. I want you guys to help me build the next generation of Sanctum, right? Like that's a very different mindset, right? So how did you go from like, okay, this is like a team that I respect to like a team I want to work with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there are 2. That's a good question. So like, to be honest, like, all of us, like, we don't really know what we're doing, right? And so like, this was my first ever acquisition. This is the most expensive purchase I've made in my life, so that was that. But also, two main reasons, right? The first one is that it always starts and ends with the people, I think, right? Because like for us, as you know, like Sanctum, we care a lot about the ethics, a lot about the kind of like honor, a lot about like what kind of person you are, right? And it doesn't matter how smart you are, like because like in crypto, there's so many ruggers, there's so many kind of like grifters, there's so many kind of like people with basically just like very difficult to work with not because they're not smart, but because you can't trust them, right? And for us, it's very, very important that everyone who joins Sanctum has like a good heart and best interest, right? And so like that, like Italo and his team, the Ironforge team, came very highly recommended by a lot of our partners, right? They were like, everyone was saying like, okay, they are very stand-up guys. They're always very reliable, right? They're professional, right? Et cetera, and they never fuck us over, right? And that is like a big kind of like plus point for me. Because there are lots of people who are not like that. Either they are incompetent or they are competent, but their interests are not aligned with yours, and then So that for me was the biggest kind of like number one reason and like a necessary condition. And then the second thing is that I think things like Ironforge is very underappreciated, like core infrastructure. So it's very like, because like people don't know this, but everyone uses Ironforge, right? Like everyone, and it's like. But nobody knows, right? Because of course, as consumers, everyone on the podcast here, like we don't know. Like if you use Jupiter every day, do you know that they're using Ironforge? You have no idea if they're using it or not, right? But actually, it's very, very kind of like prevalent. And I think at peak, right, like something of 1/3 of all of Solana's traffic was routed through Ironforge one way or another, which is like an insane statistic. Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an insane statistic. And of course, I want to be clear, like that's not the case anymore, right? But right, like it's nonetheless like it's a testament to kind of like how much volume was flowing and is still flowing like through Ironforge today. So it's very critical core infrastructure, and I actually see a lot of parallels with Sanctum's own kind of products, right? So we have the router and we have the reserve, and like nobody knows they even exist because it runs in the background. Every time like an LST is swapped to another LST, or an LST is swapped to Sol, or a Sol is swapped to an LST, that goes through the Sanctum router. Like pretty much like 90%, I would say, of LST volume, right? Okay, please don't quote me on that, but there's like definitely a huge proportion of like kind of LST and Solana volume, right, goes through one of Sanctum's products, right? But nobody knows this. Nobody actually knows this because it's like on your case, it's just like a Jupiter swap, right? You press the button and it goes, right? And whether it routes through Sanctum or not, you have no idea. And I think Ironforge is very, very similar in which like when it, all these protocols send it through Ironforge, but you don't know, right? They read through Ironforge, but you don't know because again, it's it's transparent to the user. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quick pause here. And the reason why I'm going to take a quick pause is in the time that it took you to answer this one question, we've had over 1,500 people join the stream. So I just want to remind everyone that we have just acquired Ironforge. Ironforge is a provider that helps simplify RPC node routing. They are a team with very, very high integrity. And the next question that we have for FP about like why we acquired Ironforge is, tell us about the acquisition lore, right? Like this is a story that you tell internally as well. And James told me that this is one of the better stories that you tell. And I actually have never heard the story. So this is my first time listening to it as well. So now you got over 4,000 people who are going to be listening to this. Like, how did the Ironforge acquisition come to be?
Yeah, it came actually from a warm intro from Soju, actually, right? So I was like, okay, I want to talk to the Ironforge team. Can you? And Soju is like my fixer. He hooks me up with everyone. He knows everyone. Everyone knows him. And when I want to talk to someone, I usually go to Soju, right? So he's like my bro, right? Yeah, and so like, and then we started talking. I'm like, hey, like, I'm very upfront, right? I'm not a very I'm a very direct person, right? So I'm just like, hey, like, you want to get bought? Like, can we buy you, right? And he was a bit taken aback. I was like, okay, and then we asked, some questions like, okay, what would you do, and this and that. I was like, what's the plan, right? And then I told him like of our plan to kind of build the new, the new products and so on, right? And then like we talked through it, right? And then it just so happened that Soju had invited both of us to Jupiter, sorry, not Soju, had invited both of us to Istanbul, right? Cat Istanbul, right? This was back in January, and we were like, okay, let's it was very quick, right? It was like 1 week before Cat Istanbul, and we're like, okay, let's meet at Cat Istanbul and then see if we can like iron it out. And then basically I went to Cat Istanbul and I basically just didn't talk to anyone at Cat Istanbul because my only job was to see if we could like kind of like iron out that deal, pun not intended. Yeah, and then so we just kind of like talking, we were blah blah blah. I was like, okay, like let's make it happen. And then like I remember it's like when what was it when we were all waiting for the cat, right, to be burnt, right? In the evening we just kind of like, okay, we came to the deal, we figured out the terms, and we just kind of like hugged it out. We're like, all right, let's do it. And then we went to watch the burning cat, and then we flew the next day back. Yeah, so okay. Yeah, that was it. It was a pretty like fast process, and then of course soon after, then we met, and then we in Salt Lake City, and then we joined up, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, so just to repeat this back for people who aren't quite absorbing how fascinating this is, you basically went from not knowing Italo, right, like to meeting him in Istanbul, to then pitching him over 2 days, and then by the way, when FP says burning a cat, he doesn't mean a literal cat. He's talking about a large metal cat that was constructed for Cat Istanbul with like a bunch of flamethrowers inside of it. So it was like this big ceremony that they did when they burned like a bunch of jupe, right? So what you're saying is that like in that 2-day period of not knowing someone, you were very direct, hammered out the details, and essentially decided to do a gentleman's agreement.
To be clear, it's not pitching, right? It's not me pitching him, right? It's a mutual kind of like process, right? It's we're not closing a sale. It has to be some mutual, and so like we wanted to see if there was like mutual fit, right, and things like that, and then like it was like, okay, let's give it a shot. Yeah.
But my point is that you did all that in 2 days.
yes, yeah, that we did.
So far what we've covered on the forecast is we've acquired Ironforge. What is Ironforge? Why do they matter to the ecosystem? The acquisition lore behind it. But really what this all culminates to is Sanctum Gateway. And of course, we've already announced this on all our socials. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are watching the stream who are very familiar by now with what Sanctum Gateway is. But also, I'm sure that there are thousands of other folks. Hello, everybody who has just joined the stream. I have like another 500 people who have joined. But we'd love to tell you a little bit about the next generation of Sanctum products, starting with Sanctum Gateway. And of course, we have yet another friendly video for you. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have launched Gateway. You should definitely check out gateway.sanctum.so. This is certainly not a consumer product, but it is going to be, we believe, foundational technology to route transactions and control, give yourselves fine-tuned control, especially if you're a product, to the transactions that you offer to your customers. And to start things off, in the same way that we talked about, what is Ironforge, I would love to ask you, FP, what the hell is Gateway? Why should people care?
Yeah, so oh crap! I think is my video freezing up? It's like freezing up on my end.
Oh, a little frozen, but you're smiling, so you actually look very handsome right now.
Okay, you're good, but you hear me all right now? All good?
Yeah, we can hear you all right. Don't worry about it.
All good, all good. Yeah, so Gateway, I've heard kind of like many different things, and I'll give you kind of like some intuition pumps. Right now, it's obviously a very developer focused product, right? So if you don't get it, it's fine, right? But I'll give you some kind of like different examples. One is that we are like air traffic control for Solana, right? So like over like almost 2,000 transactions kind of like flow through Solana today. And like when it like most of the time it's fine, but like sometimes, especially when you get congested, right, it's very difficult to land transactions on the chain. As we know, like for example, a few months, 6 months ago, there's the whole Trump coin launch. Basically, the whole network kind of like ground to a stop. And then like this is like a super kind of like critical thing. And so by air traffic control, I mean you're able to get this kind of like dashboard to see where your transactions are going, where are they failing, where are they being sent to, right? Where all of this stuff, like it's on your fingertips as an application developer, right? And then you're able to kind of like tweak these settings, right? Because like, hey, Jito is down. Oh, let me not use Jito. Or like this RPC is down. Let me not use this RPC, right? And so like it gives you kind of like full control across all the delivery methods that are out there. So with Jito, RPC, right, and Paladin, Nozomi, there are like 1,000 different kind of like transaction landing solutions that try to kind of fix the problem of landing transactions on Solana. And we kind of just aggregate all of them. And that comes to the second kind of like intuition pump, which is that we're like Jupyter aggregator for transaction delivery, which is that if you think about Jupyter, right, you want to buy a coin, right? You're trying to buy a coin, and Jupyter just routes you through there are so many dexes, right? Like what dex do you go from A to B, right? Jupyter routes you through and gets you that that coin at the best kind of price, right? And for us, right, you want to deliver a transaction to the blockchain, to Solana, right? Which ones do you use? How do you send it, etc.? We find the best route for your transaction. So it's very similar there. Yeah. And then the third one, and I know this is a little bit heavy, is like imagine the difference between in the past before Uber, you would call a cab, right? And they would like the dispatcher would be like, okay, we're sending a cab to your location, and you just kind of had to wait for the cab to kind of maybe show up sometimes, hopefully at some point, right? And you had no idea if it was stuck in traffic or the driver had got into an accident or he just cannot be bothered to pick you up, right? And so we are like kind of like Uber for transactions, which is that the moment as a developer, when you send a transaction, when the user presses the button on your application, right, then you can see the transaction in real time, right, as it goes right through all the pipes and all the RPCs and blah blah and gets to the blockchain, right? You can see it, and you can see when it's delayed, you can see when it dropped, right? You can see where it fails, right? You can see all of this stuff where previously you kind of just had to send it and pray. Yeah.
Right. So again, just to repeat back what I think you're hearing, and by the way, everyone, here is a nifty-difty QR code if you want to check out gateway.sanctum.so and get more information about Gateway. But Jupiter is a router and an aggregator. I mean, the first version of the product, right? For all the different dexes, right? Because before you had to go to like each separate dex and then swap, but then sometimes the rate is better at a different dex, so the liquidity is better at another one. Jupiter just solved that for you, right? Like you would just go to the Jupiter client, and then you would swap, and then they would find the most efficient route. So the metaphor that you're drawing here is that the parallel that you're drawing here is that in the same way that Jupiter helps kind of route transactions to the most efficient like DEX or liquidity to give you the best price or the fastest execution, whatever, we were doing essentially the exact same thing with Gateway, but instead of like, let's say like, most efficient swaps, it's like how to land your transactions more definitively and also at a more cost-efficient price. So we will go more into that with Sanctum. And like it's essentially Jupiter aggregator, but for transaction routing. Is that just about correct? Well, I think we lost FP for a second there, and that's totally fine because we have a backup speaker never mind. FP, are you back?
No, I just like my Wi-Fi is shit, so I just changed to the mobile data. So hopefully this helps.
Okay, sure, no problem. But yeah, I guess another follow-up. Yeah, no problem, no problem. So just like continuing with the follow-up questions, I think one thing that we would love to know is, why does this matter? So we know what Gateway is now, but there's this larger question of why does this matter? And like another rephrase of this question is like, what is the long-term strategic bet here? Like, why does this matter in the context of Sanctum?
Yep. So let's talk about kind of like the meta level, right? Which is that why did we even decide to make this bet? Because it was an expensive acquisition, right? It was a long time to build this product, right? And the problem with building a new product is that you always kind of like in that 0 to 1 phase again of trying to find product market fit and trying to find the kind of right product. And we actually already have a product that works super well, right? It's this whole staking business, and it's profitable and makes lots of money. So why put ourselves through all this pain, right? And I think the broader kind of like question is that Sanctum, like why, right? And I guess for us, it's always been for founders, like Sanctum founders, we always want to kind of like grow, right? Like grow the protocol, but also grow us as people. And we know that kind of like building this, excuse me, we know that building this is just going to like, it just takes us into a new level of execution because this is like, the next kind of like frontier. And so that's why we decided to do it, even though like it was scary. Right. And let's talk about why we think this is a good bet, right? So here's what I think, right? So everyone can kind of see that Solana adoption is accelerating, right? Like we can see all the institutions coming, and we can see like the next 12 months are going to be like super critical for Solana and crypto, like more broadly, right? Like, and I think if we want TradFi to come, right, it's gonna be like table stakes, right, to have robust infrastructure that's able to handle like 100,000 transactions per second, right, and not something that just kind of like drops off, the moment like Trump launches a coin or something, right? But however, kind of like transaction delivery is still kind of like a problem that many applications struggle with today. Now it's obviously getting better like every single day, but like we're quite not quite there yet. So we think like this is like actually a critical part for us to try and help where we can, and yeah, and so that's why we wanted to build this product. And so, I see you have this diagram up. Should I talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because I think it helps contextualize like where does Gateway fit within, because there's a bunch of products and services that we could launch, but like it actually fits within a larger vision. And so like hopefully this visual will help you explain. And you've built it, you actually whiteboarded this months ago, I think almost 6 months ago. So like please tell us more about like this value capture across the stack.
Yep. So this is kind of like, this is a very complicated diagram with lots of words. I want you guys to kind of just cover that blue stuff right all the way on the left and just look at the black diagram flow from top to bottom, right? So at the top of the funnel is always going to be users, right? And users are, like people like you and me, right? They are looking to swap coins, they're looking to lend and borrow and think or perps or things like that, right? And so they are interacting. So the flow, this is the kind of like the flow of value, right? The users are interacting with apps, they're interacting with wallets, they're interacting with protocols. And when they do that, they're paying application fees. So that's the little green square that we can see on the right. Yeah. So yeah, this is when you do a swap on Jupiter, when you borrow, when you lend, when you long, when you short, right? So on the next level down, in order for these apps and wallets and protocols to actually access the chain, right? To read and write from the chain or write to the chain, especially, right? You want to buy a coin, right? That's got to hit the chain, right? It's got to be reflected on the blockchain. The applications have to go through the validators, right? It's a long process before it gets to the validators, but fundamentally you're paying the validator to include like a transaction in the block, right? And you have to pay them transaction fees in order to get to the validators. Yeah. And then of course, finally, validators, the value flows from validators to stakers because Solana is a proof of stake network, and the validators can only validate blocks if they have enough stake to do that, right? And so a portion of the transaction fees, as well as like inflation rewards, MEV rewards, and block rewards, etc., are all given out to the stakers for reward as staking, right? Okay, so that's kind of like the downward flow of value, how value curve travels on Solana, and what kind of fees are being paid at each kind of level of the stack. Is that clear? I'm gonna pause here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to repeat that back, essentially what this diagram is showing is a flow of value from different players and or participants in the ecosystem, right? So users are paying application fees to apps, wallets, and protocols to get their, to perform certain user actions. Apps, wallets, and protocols are paying transaction fees over to different nodes, right? To make sure that their customers are landing their transactions, and validators, because they can only build blocks with stake, are paying a portion of inflation rewards, MEV rewards, or block rewards. You'll see that there's an asterisk with block rewards because not everybody passes on block rewards. Some people like just to keep it for themselves, but some of that value is actually, passed down to stakers, right? So what you're seeing here is like the value stack and where fees and where money is kind of like the soul economy, as it were, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is kind of like the value flow diagram of Solana, and value flows downwards, right? And so what we have done so far, like our entire core business is basically kind of like LSTs, right, as a service. And so we are actually occupying that bottom layer of the stack, where we are a tiny little layer kind of like between validators and stakers. We provide this wrapper over staking, right? Liquid staking tokens. Of course, we built a lot of complicated infrastructure that supports all of this, but fundamentally the product is like, here's an LST, right? And then we provide that liquidity service, right? But we are taking some of that, those rewards that would have gone to the staker, and we take some of it for ourselves. And of course, liquid stakers are happy to pay for the service because they get a lot in return, right? They can use it in DeFi, etc., etc. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are capturing some of that value from that bottom of the stack. Yeah, and the interesting thing about this funnel is that actually at every step that you go, the value gets higher and higher, right? And so, and that comes back to 2025, right? Those two things, right? Which is that we are actually trying to go up one level up on the value flow diagram and capture value on that level, right? So you can see we have gateway and we have white label validator, and this is all of that is trying to capture kind of like the transaction fee volume, right? Gateway, the idea of gateway is that as more transactions flow through gateway will be able to capture like more and more value from these transactions, and therefore kind of like that is like going up the stack because like every single app and protocol needs to go through that. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
finally, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh no, sorry. You kind of moved the slide. Yeah, and then the I don't know who put it there, the 2026 and beyond, right? But of course, kind of the holy grail, the holy grail for kind of like everyone who wants to kind of like play in this space is to obviously capture the user at the top of the funnel. Whoever captures the users is of course king. But of course you need to build, like users are very picky, and it's very difficult to capture the user all the way at the top of funnel. But hopefully, we will get there someday. Yeah.
Right. So if you've been paying attention for the last 5 minutes, essentially what we've walked you through is the different value capture stack between different participants in the ecosystem, as well as the products and services that we're building at Sanctum so that we can capture all that value, which means more revenue for the company. And more revenue for Sanctum means more things that we can do for cloud, more things that we can do for our holders, more things we can do for the community, and of course, more products and services that we can build over in 2026 and beyond. There was a little bit of a fat finger glitch, but again, I'd like to go back to a previous slide because we just have so many people who are joining the stream. Just a very, very quick recap for people who are just joining. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the Sanctum forecast for the last few months, you'll know that I've said over and over and over and over again that I have something to announce and I have something to share and we're working on so many things, but I can't tell you. Well, those things that we've been hiding and working on are, of course, the Ironforge acquisition. This has been super key to our team to shore up some new technical capabilities that we did not have before. Ironforge, of course, is kind of like your builder's favorite builder, right? They've built core infrastructure on Solana. And with Ironforge, of course, we have built Gateway, right? And Gateway allows any protocol, no code, no redeploy. I mean, well, it's a single line of code, but after that, you don't have to like redeploy in order to change things like the amount of fees that you would like to pay. It allows you to, it's like air traffic control for your transaction routing. It simplifies the entire process for you. This is the product that we've been building over the last few months. And the thing that we have been doing, strategically to kind of understand like why the heck would we build something like Gateway? Why would we acquire Ironforge? Is because we are working our way up the value stack. And as FP just said, as you go up the value stack, it actually accrue more value, right? So in 2024, we started with LSTs. We are at a all-time high with LSTs, right? In the beginning of 2024, basically we had very low TVL. We were just getting started out. It was just the founders at that time. At the end of 2024, the team has expanded very rapidly, right? I think it went from 5 people to, what is it now, FP? Is it about like 18, 19, 20 people? How many people is it?
I think, yeah.
Okay, 15. Okay, yeah. Right. But it just feels like there's new faces all the time. So it's like, okay, so we have like 15 people. The team has grown quite considerably. And the reason for this is so that we can capture more value in the SOL economy. Seeing how money flows in Solana. So that means, we have white label validator services we don't talk about nearly enough. And also we have Gateway, which allows for this transaction routing. So is there anything that you'd like to add before we talk a little bit more about how exactly Gateway works?
No, I'm good. I think you did a great summary. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to give FP a little bit of a break. I think he's been he's been very patient with me. Thank you so much, FP. We'll be bringing you back on for the Q&A. And of course, I would like to bring on a new guest. We have this segment. I think it's a fan favorite. Big warm welcome, where we have an interview with somebody who is working in the Sanctosphere, pushing core initiatives. And of course, I would like to invite to the stage the man, the myth, the legend, Sanctum. Hey, man. How are you, Sanctum?
So I'm doing all good. Really excited to be here.
Why'd you hide your chain? You had your chain earlier. You tucked it in?
Yeah.
I mean, like, one thing you guys should know about Sanctum is like he's a very humble guy. I've really, really enjoyed working with him over the last few months. In fact, the first project or like kind of mini announcement that I worked with Sanctum, and I really wanted him to come onto Forecast to talk about it, was the Sanctum CLI. We had built this CLI that allowed protocols or validators, right, to share their block rewards with simple CLI commands. Before, like, you would have to build custom code in order to share block rewards with your LST. Especially with native staking, this is very, very hard. But with an LST, one of the advantages is that you can typically people just share the inflation rewards as well as the MEV rewards, and they like to keep all the block rewards for themselves. But for players like Jupiter that like to boost their APY for their LST, it's very useful to actually share the block rewards, and that's why we have almost 5.5 million Sol staked, probably more than that by now, in just Jupe Sol alone, which is why Sanctum has reached all-time highs of just about 14 million Sol. It's been fluctuating over the last couple of days, but let's just call it even and average it out to 14 million Sol, which is over $2 billion in TVL for Sanctum. Scienton, I have been blabbing for a little bit too long, but man, oh man, it is so good to have you on the forecast. And I think the first thing that I want to ask you, what is your crypto backstory? You know, like who is Scienton? Like what have you been working on in the space, like even before you came to Sanctum?
I mean, I've been in the space for now 3 years, I think. I mean, almost 3 years. I started out contributing on open source stuff, chewed some glass. Yeah, since then I'm here.
Oh, I mean, speaking of which, so Italo, who's the founder of Iron Forge, he's also a firm believer in open source, and I believe was actually one of the core contributors of Node.js. Isn't that correct?
That's right. And when I said like I started contributing to his project called SolDev. I think some people here might know that. He
Oh,
started
okay.
out, yeah. So like I started contributing and started with Solana from there as well. So it's all like a big circle right now.
Is that how you first met Italo, or was there a different
That's actually
interaction?
right. Yeah, like we met on the Discord channel because he was like he's looking for contributors for SolDev, and that's how I met him.
Oh, okay. I see. That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is a really weird fun fact, but you actually worked at Sanctum before Sanctum was Sanctum, because right, like the
That's
first
right.
version of
Yeah.
Sanctum, and which evolved into Sanctum, was actually Socian, right? So like, you came back home, but like, explain this to the people. Like, this is a very weird journey, right? Like, you were at Sanctum when it was Socian, right? And then what happened?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I was in my final year of uni. I was doing my internship at Microsoft, and I was just bored. Like, I mean, they weren't making me do much. So I was looking for like things to do on the Web3 ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, I reached out to Social. We had a whole interview, and I was as a front end dev back then.
We've actually done this interview a couple of times. This is like the third time I've done this interview with Scienton. The one detail that he omitted here is that internship was over at Microsoft. So basically what Scienton is telling you is that he was bored at Microsoft and then started working with Socian. So cool. All right. So like the work over at corporate, actually, I'm going to bring FP onto the stage here real quick. Because I know FP has had a very similar personal experience where, and we don't need to name names or point fingers, but you as well, FP, have been in an environment where you just were looking at the way that people were working in this corporate environment, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just not what I want for my life. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think like the pace is slow, and then I remember like working on this project, and I was like, man, like this is what it is to shit. Yeah, and I remember actually hiring Sayantan, right? Because like I was there obviously. He was like the second person that we brought on. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting. I mean, he was great even then. But he's even better now. But yeah, that was that was pretty funny. Yeah, we liked him at the time. Yeah.
Oh, we liked him at the time, and we still like him now.
Yeah,
Thank you so
we
much.
hate him now. Like yeah, fuck Sayantan.
Oh,
We hate him. He's the worst.
All right, we'll bring you back on in a second, FP. Thank you very much for that. But yeah, I mean, so you worked at Sanctum before, and then you went out and you spread your wings, and then you were trying out different things. You actually started off as a front end dev, and now
Mhm.
you're completely full stack. You're actually leading the team on a couple of initiatives. And so I think the next question I want to ask is like, what have you been working on? And for people who have been watching the stream over the last few months, you'll know that we've made some really significant infrastructure improvements over at Sanctum. And Scienton has had a very heavy hand in improving, what the plumbing of Sanctum looks like. So before we go straight into Gateway, I think it'd be great to tell people about some of the work that you've been doing with the infrastructure improvements.
Yeah, I mean, when we joined the team, like we saw that like like the code base was like written in multiple languages, and there was a lot of like maintenance work going on. Like a lot of time was being spent maintaining stuff and not building stuff. And we wanted to change that, so we sort of decided to like unify the code base, write everything in one single repository using TypeScript. And like we at Iron Forge had the experience of like doing all of that. So like we sort of brought that in here and like just simplified things, and now like hopefully things are running much smoother now.
Yeah, and you actually told me in the pre-interview that you actually found development on Solana easy compared to ETH, right?
Yeah,
I
actually,
I'm
like
not.
I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like I mean back then like it was so hard to like even find like DevNet like ETH or whatever they call it then. But then like and the Solana
Are you talking about
ecosystem
like
like
girly ETH?
yeah something like yeah I don't even
Yeah,
remember to be honest.
yeah.
But yeah, and like honestly, like the one thing that really caught my eye was just like how people were really helpful in the Solana ecosystem, like, and that really like made me stuck in here, and like I didn't ever look back at it.
Right, right. And, so just going back to these infrastructure improvements, like one of the things that was quite difficult for, especially for like, let's say a front end dev, is that they don't code in Rust. And, for those
Mm,
of you who don't code, Rust is very, very notorious amongst developers because it's a very strict rule set, right? Like even a slight deviation will just cause things to not run, right? Like,
yeah,
and the reason Rust has so many, like, let's say not limitations, but rules is because it's extremely efficient, right? But in order to achieve that efficiency, it means that you have to follow like a very, very strict set of rules. And so that's why a lot of developers find it very frustrating to work with. But what you've essentially done, from what I understand, with the infrastructure improvements, is that you've made it possible for some of the front end engineers to code using TypeScript to make calls, backend calls, right? So they don't actually have to
yeah.
be learning the Rust at all. Like I think I want to call them services. Sorry, like I'm not dev, but like
Yeah,
you've
like
made it easier.
basically,
Yeah, yeah,
like all our devs are now leaning towards being full stack. Like nobody's just a front end dev anymore,
right.
which is great. Like now anybody can work on anything. We don't need to rely on just one person on doing something specific.
Yeah, FP had wrote this amazing piece about how once he was working in the office and he turned and he thought he saw a rat, and it wasn't a rat, it was Hanyang's hair. And and Hanyang is one of the co-founders of Sanctum, and the reason why there was a clump of hair in the office is because he was so stressed out having to be the
Mhm.
single point of contact for writing all these back-end calls, right? So
Yeah.
I think you've saved Hanyang's hairline. So thank you very much, Sayan. And of course, the other initiative that you've been working on is Gateway, right? And we want to dive a little bit more into the guts of Gateway, and we're going to try to make this as simple as possible for all the viewers here. We have over 6,000 people on the stream who are learning more about what Gateway is, why it matters, and how exactly it works. And we're going to start off with, there are two stages to Gateway, right? There's the optimization stage, and there's the delivery
Mhm.
stage. So could you tell us a little bit more about like how Gateway works? Just very broad. You don't have to go too deep into it. We'll go deep a little bit later, but like very broadly, how does Gateway work?
Yeah, I mean, so as we talked about, like Gateway like handles your transactions, and every transaction like there's some business logic to it that you wanna support. But then along with that business logic, there are things that we need to do to make sure that like our transactions are landing fine, they're efficient, and they don't consume too much compute units and all that stuff. So that whole part before everything that goes happens before sending the transaction is what we are calling here optimized stage. And then once we have that optimized transaction, everything is good. Then we do the delivery, and then once we deliver, hope most probably like it'll land on the network, and your transaction should be there.
Right. So ultimately, what this means is that for a protocol, you have a much higher likelihood of landing your transactions, and especially in periods of very high network activity. So, just to give two historical examples, when OR released the
Yeah.
OR client, right, and people were mining for OR on the Solana network, it literally ground the network to a halt, right? Also, with Trump, the launch of Trump on Meteora. Like I remember trying to LP positions into Meteora, and it would just like my orders would not go through. It was really stressful because I was like trying to pull my pull my LP,
Like,
but like the network grinds to a halt, right? And so things like Gateway help protocols land their transactions better, especially during periods of high network stress.
yeah, exactly. Like it's like you have redundancy, you have fallback, and you get more control into like how you're optimizing your transaction, how much priority fees you're paying, and all that stuff.
Right. So for everybody, I'll say it very loud in the back. There are two stages to sending a transaction through Gateway. Stage one is optimization, and stage two is the actual delivery of that transaction. Fun fact for optimization, it's actually optional in a sense, right? Do you want to actually dive into that? Like, why is like why even do it is a question, but like it is optional. Could you just kind of explain what that means in the context of
Yeah, I
optimization?
mean,
Yeah.
so like most probably like if you are sending transactions and like if you're familiar with like the good practices, these are things that you're probably already doing for your transactions like before sending them. But for someone like who's starting out, or if somebody wants to like more dynamically control how they're setting their priority fees, then you could use our optimization API. And what that allows you to do is basically without having to change your code or redeploy your application, you can sort of manage how much priority fees you're paying, what delivery methods you're using, whether you want to expire a transaction within certain amount of time or not. So like it becomes more dynamic and more less code changes on your side. But again, like as I mentioned, it's optional. You could be doing that on your own. It depends on whether you would want to make your lives easier or not.
But then like going on to the second stage, which is delivery, right? Like explain this a little bit. There's FB has talked about this and explained it several times, but like now we have the visual for it, right? So there's so many different RPCs that you can route a transaction to. So just an example, we have Triton Cascade, we have Nozomi, we have Jito bundles, we have Paladin, of course. So like what exactly happens during the delivery stage?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like all these RPCs, Cascade Network, Jito bundles, like what we call them are like delivery methods. Like these are basically methods of how you deliver transactions to the network. And what the delivery stage does is basically route your transaction through these methods. And we sort of prioritize, I wouldn't say prioritize, but it's something that you can control where like you can choose to prioritize your transactions to go via RPCs instead of Jira bundles. And that's something you would want to do when the network is not congested. So you don't want to be paying extra for Jito bundles. But then let's say tomorrow the network is congested and then like your RPCs are also like maybe lagging behind, your transactions are not landing and you want to pay a little extra for Jito bundle so that your transactions go through, then you can do that as well. And again, as I mentioned, like you can do all of this via our dashboard. You don't need to redeploy your application, no code changes, just a few clicks and that's it.
Yeah. So like let me just paint a metaphor for people to kind of understand and this a lot of times people just expect Solana to work in a way that makes sense, but in a lot of ways we're still early in the network's history, right? So there's like a bunch of stuff that hasn't been built quite yet, but services like Gateway actually address things that are just common sense, right? So let me just give an example. So like let's say that I want to order some food with Grab or Uber Eats, like whatever coupon, like whatever your food delivery service is in your home country, right? And you want to make sure that you get your food fast. So you actually pay extra money to get your food fast, right? But sometimes, and like let's just say that you pay that fee every single time you get a food delivery. It's just like you pay this extra fee, extra fee, extra fee. And the reason why you're paying this extra fee is you're trying to get your food fast, right? But sometimes, the food comes fast anyways, and you didn't need to pay the fee, right? The tip to the driver. And does it make sense? Like, why would you be paying a tip for something that was going to come on time anyways, right? Like, can we agree that in the normal world, like if you were to pay a fee for like a food delivery, like you wouldn't, like why would you pay for something that you like for a
I
service
mean,
that you didn't get, right?
I don't know if it's there in other countries, but here in India, like you can even like tip your Uber drivers a little extras just so that you know they accept your ride.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like another sort of analogy, like you know, like but most of the time they just accept it anyway. Like you don't need to tip them extra.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason why I'm drawing this parallel here is because that's exactly what's happening on Solana today, and people don't realize it, right? So what I mean is that people keep sending Jito tips in order to make sure that their transactions are going through. But in many such cases, they don't need to be sending the Jito tips. And so they're just paying this extra money to land these transactions, and it's completely unnecessary, right? It's not cost efficient at all. And so what Gateway allows you to do is to get a refund on your unused Jito tips, which just makes sense. And like, just for whatever reason, just hasn't been built yet. And we've built it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the way that you had phrased this earlier, which is like, you only really pay for what you're using. And like, isn't that
Yeah.
the way that the world should operate? You should only pay for the things that you use. Like, why the heck would you pay for things that you're not using?
What you use and what you really need, actually, even.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Gateway offers to all our protocol partners. And that leads us into like how these protocols are actually using Gateway. And so there's this dashboard, right? So like, walk us through this dashboard a little bit. What exactly is the Gateway dashboard, and why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, with the dashboard, I mean, coming from Ironforge, like we realized that, like, there's the only real solution for like visibility, analytics, or even like a real dashboard for your transactions or RPC requests. Like Ironforge was the only solution out there. And we sort of wanted to bring that experience, like that same experience with Gateway as well. So we built this dashboard with that allows you to basically get more like visibility into all the transactions that you're sending via Gateway. And what this dashboard allows you to do is that it basically lets you and like ask questions such as, like how like what's the landing rate of your transactions? How much tip or how much fees are you paying for your transactions? Are you paying too much? Are my transactions not landing? And if that is the case, then you can sort of use this information, you can leverage this information provided to you by the dashboard to sort of configure certain parameters that are also there in the dashboard. And then that dynamically updates how you're sending your transactions via Gateway and sort of like helps you make decisions according to that.
Right. So this is a protocol facing product. This is not a consumer product. And the one thing that I really want to highlight here for any protocols that are watching the stream that might be super curious about using or integrating the Gateway dashboard or just Sanctum Gateway is what is the technical uplift for using Gateway?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like there's too much, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's going to be more of deleting code rather than adding code. And me personally, like, I love deleting code. And I think like there'll be probably others as well.
Yeah. I'm going to be bringing FP back on the stage because I'm hoping that he's going to allow us to say one thing. So I'm going to be bringing FP here just to get his approval. FP, my big question, are we allowed to talk about who our big first customer is, or do we want to save that for a little later? It's okay if we...
Let's be... I mean, okay, I think we can say it, but we should make it clear that it's it's a beta and it's very early stage.
Yeah, okay. So to be very clear to everyone who's watching, hello, everyone. We have over 6,500 people watching the stream. And the thing that we want to be really clear about is that Gateway is still in, kind of testing phase. It's definitely live. It's been built. But, there's a really key partner that we're working here, a believer in what we're building. And FP, who is this partner?
Yeah, so Jupiter has been super kind of them to start testing their transaction flow through Gateway. So we are seeing a small percentage, not all, right? Small percentage of Jupiter's transactions going through Gateway today, and that's been super helpful because, of course, as we know, Jupiter sends a lot of transactions. Actually, before Jupiter, our first client was Sanctum, so we actually sent all our transactions now. We fully dog food, eat our own dog food, right? So all the transactions that go through Sanctum today go through Gateway. So if you go to the Sanctum app and you click around, right, that's going through Gateway today, right? And of course, we have a lot of like backend cranks and lots of infrastructure stuff to run for the to maintain the stuff that all goes through Gateway. However, right, that pales in comparison to, of course, what Jupiter is obviously giant. And so like we are getting a small percentage of the flows. They are testing it out. They are really, really happy with it so far. I mean, let's not put words in their mouth, but at least as far as we can tell, they seem really, really happy. with the service that we provide. They give Sanctum a lot of bug reports or like feature suggestions, and then we're always very quick to respond. And so yeah, things are looking good so far. But of course, this is only first step. Yeah, so we got a long way to go.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about like why Gateway makes sense in the context of Sanctum's long-term strategic direction. But there's a story that I'd love you to tell about like why, like what does the partner need? Like we've talked a lot about like optimization and delivery, and like you only have to pay for what you need. That's all true. But there's also this kind of like discussion about how Gateway, what it essentially allows partners to do is to get full visibility into their transactions that they haven't gotten before, and that's actually feedback that we've gotten over the last few months, right? So, like, could you explain that a little bit more in terms of like transaction visibility?
Actually, I think Sanctum should take this because he.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sanctum, you're on the spot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, like as I mentioned, like earlier, like the only real solution was Ironforge, and we knew that protocols really liked that feature. Like they really wanted to know how much like their compute unit utilization was, their slot latency was. Like just recently only we started tracking our slot latencies for all the transactions that are going through. And that came from feedback from Jupe as well, because they really wanted to like prioritize zero to like not more than like 1 or 2 slot latency. So these sort of like information are really important to protocols for their user experience. And that really comes like we have a whole like logs experience as well, like where
Sorry,
you can
Sanctum,
see
can you, before you go into logs, can you tell us what does slot latency even mean for the the
yeah,
non-technical audience? Yeah.
yeah, sure. Basically, slot latency is the difference in like the number of slots passed between when you're sending the transaction and when your transaction actually landed. So it's basically like a response time, like how they call latency, but in terms of slot. Um, so now, yeah. And as I was saying, like we have like a logs experience where you can see real-time logs of your transactions coming through, and you can see like how they're going through all your delivery methods. What is the slot latency? What are the response times? Even how much compute unit you're using? Any like simulation logs, program logs, everything is like all there at one place.
Yeah. Okay. So it's been over an hour of explaining some of the latest and greatest news over at Sanctosphere. We have been holding it onto a bunch of different news over the last few months, but finally we revealed these. So, of course, just to give you a quick breakdown, we've acquired Ironforge. That was a deal that FP had struck over at Catstanbul, did it in 48 hours, which is absolutely phenomenal. And the Ironforge team has been an incredible cultural fit with the Sanctum team. And of course, with this new super team, no pun intended, that we've built over at Sanctum, we've also just launched Gateway, which allows you to give fine-tuned control and visibility and also better reliability for transaction landing for your products and services. And for now, we're going to be transitioning over to the last and final part of the forecast. If you've stuck here towards the end, oh man, I really, 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 really appreciate it. Thank you so much for staying all the way towards the end. We're going to stay for maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the types of questions that we get. Now is your chance to ask us everything. And we also have our very good friend, Nick, who is in the background, who's going to be controlling all of these questions. So like the first question that we have is from Nate. Are these switches automated, or does a Neve need to monitor and manually reroute or switch paths?
I'm assuming the switches that he's talking about is like the routes for the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are pretty much automated. Like you need to monitor in terms of like you need to look into the dashboard and see if your transactions are landing fine or not. If not, you just have to like change like certain parameters that are there on the dashboard. But that's something that like can be done with a few clicks.
Okay. That sounds great. And next question: is there a revenue switch in here anywhere? Are you just Nate? Do you mean that like does this make us money? Like of course.
Yeah, so we charge at this moment for this kind of like for this version of the gateway product, what we do is that we charge a portion of the priority fees, right? So if the priority fees in Solana, 0.0 whatever sold, right? We just take 25% of that on every single transaction. Yeah.
I see. Nick, next question. What is the purpose of the cloud token? Why is it needed besides voting? I think that this topic is something that we'll cover more in the future. For future, I mean, I feel free to answer this, FP, if you'd like to. I know that you've been doing a lot of thinking around here, but my thinking is that for the next forecast, we're going to be actually focusing on this very, very heavily.
Yeah, I think let's keep this question in view, right? And let's make sure to address it on the next question. But let's keep this forecast kind of like focused on the like product questions for now. And then next, like we care a lot about cloud, but we will answer that next forecast. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I want to make this really, really clear. We are not dodging the question. We literally had this whole section planned out for this forecast about cloud. Like we had a whole bunch of questions, a bunch of slides. We took it out. And the reason why we took out the portion of the forecast that was pertaining to cloud is because we are currently an hour and 12 minutes into the stream, and we're not even done talking about gateway. We didn't want anyone to stay here for 2 hours. So like that's why we decided strategically to like take the cloud discussion and make it a whole new forecast. It's literally the next one that we're going to do. So not dodging the question. We will cover it on the next forecast. That is a promise. The timing of the forecast is TBD, but the content of the forecast is not negotiable. How does transaction not found happen? I think this is it was on the dashboard, bottom right. Let's see what he might be referring to here. Is there like a transaction not found? Is that what he's referring to?
Oh yeah, it's the little gray bar, like all the way at the bottom.
Ah, I see.
Oh.
How does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically when your transaction just does not land on the network. So you send it, but it did not land. The block hash expired for your transaction and it couldn't land on the network.
I see.
What's
so
the
like,
difference
why does
between failed and not found?
So failed is when your transaction actually landed on the TPU and like it processed, but then there was an error with the transaction logic, whereas not found is where it just did not land.
I see. And then we have another question from Maggle Daryl. Is there a way we can follow the growth of Gateway, like the total number of transactions landed, as we can follow the growth of TVL for LSTs? Oh, this is a really good question, right? Because like anybody can go onto DeFi Llama and then kind of check out like all the latest and greatest developments with Sanctum TVL. So like currently you can see we're at about like 13.6 million in TVL. Is there an equivalent for this that we can share or willing to share with the public as it pertains to total number of transactions landed or just like the amount of transaction flow?
We don't have
right now
these public. We don't have these
Yeah, no,
public
it's alright.
dashboards yet. We have internal dashboards, and our tip accounts are public. But we don't have like a public dashboard. I will again say that like this is, I mean I get that people want to see the progress, but I will like just stress that this is very early stage. Like the way we like it's very possible that the product will change over time, and I don't want like we are really just trying to talk to all the partners out there and trying to figure out what they want and building a product. So we're at that stage of the process, right? And so like I think like it is like a little bit premature to be thinking about like, oh, how many soul are we making right now, which is like we'll get there, but I think it's like way too early in the process because like building finding product market fit, like building something that your partners have to use will take some time.
And this is a really good question from Scarlett. What's the difference in link between Gateway and Metis? So like Metis, for people who are not aware, is the routing algorithm, the name of the routing algorithm for Jupiter, right? And I forget what version they're on. I feel like they're on Metis like version like I want to say 3, but I could be completely wrong about that. But like there have been multiple iterations of Metis over time. There's a developer, I'm just going to call him M, who leads that effort for Jupiter. But for just people who might be curious, like what is the difference between Metis and Gateway?
Um, I mean, if like I'm not super familiar with Metis, but then from what I understood, from what you just said, I mean, it's more about routing between like pairs of coin pairs, like market. Whereas gateway is something where like we are routing your transaction from like into like multiple like delivery methods like Jito bundles, RPCs.
Right,
So
right,
they're like
exactly.
Yeah. So it's
pretty
I
different.
would say it's an analogy, right? So the analogy is that like why using Metis or like why using Jupiter, right? You want to buy a coin, right? And you want to buy it at the best price, but there are like 100 dexes out there, right? And like you don't know like how to route, right, to get to the coin that you want to buy. But fundamentally, that's what you want to do. And so what Metis does, the routing engine, right? It will find you the route, right? It's like, okay, buy this from here and sell this from here and buy this from here, and then it'll find you like some route that will get you the best price for your coin, right, for whatever you're buying or selling. And Gateway is the same. As a protocol, I want to land my transaction on a chain. And like there are so many delivery methods, there's so many parameters, there's so many compute units and priorities, all this crap. It's like I don't care. Like, just get me just land the freaking transaction, right? Like, that's my job. That's, and so like what we do is like abstract all the complexity, right? Like, and we figure out all this optimization and the routing and the delivery methods and blah, 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 right? And so at the end of the day, all you need to do is click, right? Like, okay, like use Gateway, right? And so just like, you're buying a thing, you don't have to look through all the different dexes because Jupiter does it for you, right? Here in this case, like all this stuff, like Sanctum does it for you. So just use Gateway. Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is a great explanation by Sumptuous. Like Metis is for liquidity routing, whereas Gateway is more for transaction routing and making sure that your transaction even lands, so that you can get your coins and your tokens. Next question that we have is from Nicholas. Is there grounds for routing and handling cross-chain transactions? For example, incoming transactions via wormhole, axelars, or layer 0 validators?
Not as of now. Like we only do like Solana transactions right now.
I see. But like FP said, never say never. The product is going to evolve just based on feedback from our partners. And if that ever becomes, the case, who knows what will happen in, like, let's say 2030. There could be a version of Gateway that could do, like, let's say cross-chain routing. But again, to be very, very clear here, we are on the exact opposite side of the spectrum. We're in a phase of experimentation. The product has been built. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And we're working with Jupiter very early stages, and they are giving lots of very important feedback to Sanctum, both in terms of feature requests and bugs and things that we need to improve. Okay, so we are at an hour and 20 minutes of this stream. I am going to pull an executive decision here and say it is time to draw this to a close. I know that we've had people joining us from all around the world, but currently where I'm at, it's 1 a.m. FP, I believe it's 12 a.m. Like you're just right at midnight. And Sanctum, like what time is it where you're at?
It's about 9:30.
9:20? All right. Well, lucky you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us here at the stream. Like, I actually don't mind hanging around and just talking to people for a little bit, but we're gonna officially end the Sanctum forecast. I please would encourage you to scan this QR code and check out gateway.sanctum.so. Obviously, the phrase and the slogan for sanctum.so is how many transactions will you land this week? And you can get full visibility with just like a single line of code. It's absolutely phenomenal. A single fetch request. You can remove like almost like 200 lines. Like, who doesn't like to remove code, right? So before we go, I would love to give FP. Well, Sanctum, first, is there anything you want to say before we send you off?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, Sanctum, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. You've done absolutely phenomenal. I know that you're a little nervous about being here. No gotchas, no surprises. This went as smoothly as you thought it would go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's say goodbye to
All right.
Sanctum, everyone. W's in the chat for Sanctum, and we're going to close this out with FP and myself. FP, Honestly, like this has just been a lot of work. I know that you've been torn in like a million different directions. I see it every day. Finally, Gateway and the Ironforge acquisition is out. But you know, that's just the beginning. I mean, like that, none of that really matters. Like what matters is to actually see Gateway evolve as a product and for more and more people to use it. Is there a call to action or something that you think is like very important for Gateway's success that you'd like to just kind of share with everyone?
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you're an application developer or a protocol developer and you're watching this, right, it's like, please reach out. We'd love to kind of build the product that you would want to use. We think that, yeah, Gateway, as of right now, is like pretty useful, but of course, it's not going to be for everyone, but we want it to be for everyone. We want kind of like I think it could be just like Sanctum router, like critical infrastructure that kind of like every transaction on Solana flows through. Right, so we need your help to make that happen. Let us know how we can build to serve your needs. Yeah, so that would be like the main call to action. I know most people watching this probably aren't protocol application developers, but you know, I think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we are going to officially end the forecast, even though the stream might go on for a few more minutes, and we're going to close it out with a video that was so nice we had to play it twice. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining this forecast. We had over 7,000 people listen to us talk about Gateway. I think this is the biggest public push that we've done. And I hope that if you've been watching and you found this valuable, you know, you can write a thread or tell your friends about Gateway. Obviously, if you're a developer or you run your own protocol, please reach out to us either in the Twitter DMs or in the comments or wherever you want, especially me. Like, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to route you over to the team. We'd love more people to be using and testing out Gateway. Thank you very much for your time. And I think we're just going to call it. It is over. Thank you for your time, FP.
Yeah, happy to be here. You did a fantastic job as always.
No. And actually, I'm gonna bring on one more special guest. Like the forecast is over. If you guys are tired and you guys can leave, don't worry about it. We're just wrapping things up. But for those of you who are staying, I do want to bring on a person who has helped make this forecast what it is. I'm bringing him to the stage in 3, 2, 1. Nick, hey Nick, how are you? I know you are also wearing your Sanctum jersey. I see.
Yes,
I see.
the Sanctum jersey.
Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for running the comments as well as helping prepare the forecast today. Couldn't have done it without you. I will be staying on for a few more minutes just to kind of like banter and hang out with people. I just absolutely love the community. FP, I know it was very, very late for you and you actually have more shit to do tomorrow, even though it's a fucking Saturday. Excuse my French. So we're going to let you go. So adios, FP, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You smashed it.
See you.
All right.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone.
Nick, how you feeling? Okay. W. Okay. You know what? No, I want to see some W's in the chat for FP. We got W. Nick, the one and only. We do have a fire editor. I absolutely agree. I hope everyone had a blast this session. Bye, Cloudies. See you later. It was really good connecting with you. And Lucio, oh man, I fucking love Lucio. Lucio's like this just OG Sanctum member, and honestly, like some of the best art coming out of the Sanctum, the Sanctosphere, and it's all thanks to Sanctum Spectrum, which Lucio has been running. Scal, who's also been on the stream. We got Molu. We absolutely love Molu. Molu is I need this. Yeah, bro. We get you the Sanctum jersey for real. I absolutely love this jersey. This is great. And all you had to do was retweet the stream. Nick, retweet the stream as well as ask thoughtful questions. So what else do we got? Congratulations to the Sanctum team. Really appreciate that. Sanctum Jupiter Alliance is getting stronger every day. Absolutely agree. A tagline from our friends over at Bonk: win and help win. Absolutely. Nick, what are you doing? Are you modeling? Relax. Okay. Can't stand Rust. Yeah, no, it is a bit of a mad experience, says Ashwati. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
where what are the comments?
Forecast is over, and yet we are climbing in views.
Yes, of course. We're still increasing. Yeah, forecast is over, guys, but we're just hanging out with people. We like hanging out with folks. People are here for Eno banter. No one cares about my banter, bro. Like, I am not important. Like, I am just a megaphone to the work that's actually being done. I cloud you. Oh my goodness, I love this. I cloud you. Prado was here for a little. Man, Molu has been here like the entire freaking time. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Dude, he's been here for like the last hour and a half. That is insane.
Yep.
Wow, got the shorts too, says Scarlett. Absolutely. Nenye, WFP, Nick, Nate, look at those guns. Thank you, great sesh, guys. Super appreciate that. You can tell that my voice is starting to get more and more weak, and that's because it's 1 a.m. here and my wife is sleeping, so I should probably be a little bit more quiet. Yeah, we actually hit over 14 million SOL in TVL yesterday, and with like yesterday's SOL prices, I think we were over like 2.5 billion USD in TVL. Guys, that's insane. There were periods of times when I first joined Sanctum where like our TVL was like I think closer to 800 million. Like maybe we hadn't even cracked 1 billion, and now we've like just zoomed past that to 2.5 billion. And we're making more money now as a company than we're projected to make. I mean, like what we need SOL prices to sustain themselves. And we also need our TVL to stay at the level that it's at consistently over the next year. But like we're on track to really grow our revenue. And if you are OG listeners of Forecast, what you'll know is that we were hyper focused on, like, we dropped a lot of things that we really cared about and wanted to work on because we needed to survive as a company. Like we had money in the bank, but like at the same time we wanted to grow the war chest. And the logic for growing the war chest is very simple, right? Like having a bigger war chest means that we can do things for cloud. It means that we can do things for the holders. It means that we can hire more team members that allow us to build more products and services. Need I remind you that we are trying to capture all parts of the value stack, right? So you can see this diagram over here. You know, there's this flow of value that flows from users to protocols to validators to stakers. Users are paying application fees to apps, wallets, and protocols. The apps, wallets, and protocols are paying transaction fees to validators. And the validators are sharing inflation rewards, MEV rewards, and sometimes block rewards over to stakers. And what Sanctum is doing, if you're looking at the left-hand side of the diagram, is that we are building products and services that capture value at every single part of the stack, right? So last year in 2024, you know, when we were just getting started, we started with LSTs, pushing forward in an infinite LST future. We have over 1,000 LSTs that have been issued so far, which is absolutely phenomenal. And we recently turned on the fee switch earlier this year. So what that means is that we're earning 2.5% of the profit that validators make from inflation rewards and MEV rewards, and sometimes block rewards as well. So that alone, that fee switch, has made Sanctum a profitable business. But on top of that, like not only LSTs, guys, we're also running white label validators. I can't talk about some of the partners that we work with there, but like some of the biggest you know, protocols on Solana are using us as their validator you know, provider. And so what that means for teams that want a validator is that they don't even have to worry about setup. We Sanctum pay for all the startup costs. We pay for all the operational costs. And we only make money when our partners make money. That is the Sanctum way. That's the right way to do business. So the white label validator as well as gateway, which allows you to have fine-tuned control as well as visibility on transaction landing, allows us to capture transaction fees from the apps, wallets, and protocols to the validators. And we are grinding very hard on that for 2025. If that achieves the success that we think it will in 2025, we actually have, we say 2026 and beyond for this kind of mystery product that we're talking about. But honestly, we might even see that a little later or sooner. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's a little too early to tell. But the point is that we are going to capture value at every part of the stack. I can't believe that we're at over 2 billion in TVL and people are still not bullish on Sanctum. Like, what a shame. What an absolute shame. We're doing great work for the Solana ecosystem. We don't OTC cloud tokens to anybody. For those of you who have been paying attention to previous forecasts as well, bro, we scored a 40 out of 40 on the Blockworks token transparency framework. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yep, that is correct.
There's only two projects, that received a perfect score on token transparency. It's us and MetaDAO. Not even Jito got a perfect score, and I really oops, did I say that? My bad. But I sorry, I'm not I actually don't have a problem with the Jito team. They're nice enough guys.
Yeah, it has been 3 cohorts, and we are the only 2 that got full marks there, actually.
Yeah, we got a 40 out of 40 on token transparency, and not only that, but poor Nick had to look at how many transactions did you have to look through, Nick, for the token transparency report?
All of them. All of them.
Yeah, I know all, but how many was that, Nick?
It's a few hundred.
Yeah, a few hundred transactions. So we did an internal cloud audit. So every single cloud transaction. Let me repeat that one more time. Every single cloud transaction that has ever occurred from Sanctum wallets has been accounted for, right? So any wallet that is owned by Sanctum, the team, and the token transfers from those wallets have all been accounted for. Is that a token audit available anywhere, Nick? Where can people see that?
Yep, it's available on our Sanctum blog, which is on our website, and it is also available on our Sanctum research forum. So the research forum is where typically we discuss community proposals and ideas, as well as our own governance proposals. So yeah, you can find the report there, as well as on our social. All over our socials, actually. You can find it in the Discord channels, in announcement. You can find it in the X. We posted a post, and the post links to all of the blogs, the research, and also the Blockworks transparency report.
Yeah, right. So again, just to repeat that one more time for emphasis, the first step that we took with Sanctum token transparency is that we did an internal cloud audit. So this was an audit that nobody asked us for this. We just initiated this internally, where we tracked every single transaction that has been coming to and from wallets that are owned by the Sanctum team. So we self-published this report, right? And then what we did is we submitted a bunch of information over to Blockworks. Blockworks is one of the biggest media / research companies in crypto. And they've built something called a token transparency framework, where they basically score teams out of 40 to say how transparent they've been with not just Blockworks, but like just all the things that you'd want to see from a major protocol in their token. And we scored a perfect score. So even if you don't believe in us, you don't believe our word, you don't trust us, we've gotten it verified by one of the most trustworthy voices in the space. So what you can expect to see from Sanctum is more insane growth. If you are a cloud holder, I promise you that we actually have a lot of initiatives that are going to be coming up in the next couple of months to make Sanctum the most investable team in crypto. And look, we don't talk about price here, but we do talk about fundamentals. And a robust cloud internal audit is a fundamental thing. That has nothing to do with price. That's just the right thing to do. Another right thing to do is to get that information verified by third parties like Blockworks. That's the right thing to do. And there are plenty of other things that we want to do with the cloud token. That's just quite frankly the right thing to do. We will never OTC tokens, on the down low. I mean, there are actually legitimate reasons to OTC, but like a lot of teams just OTC their tokens so that they can, and those tokens get dumped onto their holders. And in our case, like this is why it's so important to be a revenue generating business, because it completely just erases that question, right? Like we don't need to OTC tokens because we make money, the legitimate way. And the way that we make money the legitimate way is to capture every single part of the stack. And if we are correct, every single time you move up this stack, from validators to stakers to protocols to validators to users to protocols, there's more and more value to be captured. So we internally have our own projections for how much money that LSTs could potentially net us. Gateway and white label validators as a service net us more money than LSTs. And then there's this kind of like secret project that we're working on. In the same way that we kept Gateway and the Ironforge acquisition a secret for 6 months, there's probably another 6-month lag for the next product that we're building. And many of you are wondering, like, when Wonderland Season 2? I promise you what's happening, actually. It is going to happen. But we're going to do it when it's right, when it makes sense. We're not going to rush it just because people tell us to. I actually have this story that I like to tell. It's from one of my favorite writers and chefs, rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain. But in his book, Kitchen Confidential, he talks about kind of different chefs, right? The chef types. And he says, give me an Ecuadorian chef over an Italian chef any day. And it's like, why? Why would you prefer an Ecuadorian chef over an Italian chef? Well, like, let's say that you have an Italian restaurant and you're in the kitchen and the chef is screaming at the Italian and he goes, where the fuck is the risotto? Give me my risotto. You're so late with the risotto. Why haven't you given me my risotto? Give it to me right now. Give it. Well, what the chef will do, because he's quite young and inexperienced, is he's just going to give the chef like a half-cooked risotto, because there's a lot of time pressure and he's yelling at him. And so he's just feeling like, oh man, I need to deliver this risotto, right? But Anthony says, like, I'd rather have an Ecuadorian chef, because like while I'm screaming in his face, he just looks at me very calmly, ignores what I'm saying, and prepares the risotto properly. And it might be a minute too later than what I want it to be, but it's going to be the perfect risotto, right? And that is how I feel about Wonderland Season 2. And I know that's how the team feels as well. You can scream and yell and holler and say, where is Wonderland Season 2? Why won't you give me Wonderland Season 2? It's been almost a year or so. So like, just give me Wonderland Season 2. I get that. I understand. But we're going to make sure that we do it the right way. We're going to do it very calmly. We're going to do it very strategically, and make sure that we, if we do it, we're going to do it properly. Okay, guys. Oh, shoot. I forgot. Dude, there's so much bullish news. I actually forgot about this. Thank you to Sumptuous. We'll cover this on the next forecast as well. But super glad we got MoonPay to launch an LSD with Sanctum. That literally was guys. I'm not kidding. There's so many updates in the Sanctum Slack. Like it's constant. I actually missed this. Like I found out about the MoonPay LST on Twitter and not from my own Slack. Just because. Oh my God. If you could see the Sanctum Slack, just like the amount of messages that are flying around, there's too many updates. There's just too many conversations we're having. I think that right now we're probably talking to like dozens of we are talking to dozens of partners simultaneously, whether it be for Gateway, whether it be for white label validators, whether it be for LSTs, whether it be for INF, whether it be for new features that people are requesting, and one of that is the launch of I think it's like MP Soul, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. MP
So
Soul,
that
yes.
so that just launched today. So that's really funny. Okay, guys, it is 1:11 a.m. my time. I'm going to sleep. It's just about time. The Sanctum story is to prove ethical crypto can win, and we will win. Absolutely. So thank you for everyone for joining the stream. It's been an absolute pleasure. Over 7,000 people have learned about Gateway, the Ironforge acquisition, and what Sanctum's plans are strategically to capture value at every part of the stack. And with that, I wish you a very good night. I love you all, and thank you very much for joining the forecast. Adios.
Bye bye. See you.
Oh man.